A year ago, pretty much to the day, a lot of people in this room would have been at the protest that happened at Town Hall as we found out the horrible news about what had happened to those aboard the Mavi Marmara. And we rallied there in solidarity with Palestine, but also with those people who'd been the victims of what was such a horrible assault on those people trying to deliver aid to those in Gaza. And I think that being ready to respond is really important, because I think some of those demonstrations that happen around the world rattled the cage a little bit of Israel, because I think they'd really gone one step too far, murdering people on the high seas, engaging that horrific act of piracy and things like that. And I think that the demonstrations are really important in highlighting both the plight of the Palestinians and the plight of the people aboard the ship. And I remember sticking up posters in the morning for the protest and having people coming up to me in Newtown going, yeah, I never really paid much attention, but they've really gone way too far with this this action, and I think we want to be ready if they do similar things to the flotilla and trying to make sure that we're showing our solidarity. So without further ado, I want to introduce Ahmed Talib, and I have to say it's a real pleasure and honour to be able to introduce someone who I regard as a bit of a hero, someone who stared down the guns and the menacing stature of the Israeli Defence Forces and lived to tell the tale, but also lived with real grit and determination and a real resolve to keep on fighting for the Palestinians and for people oppressed by murdering terrorist states like Israel and the US around the world. And so with this part of the meeting, we're just going to run a little bit differently. It's going to be a bit of a sort of back and forth between myself and Ahmed, but I thought I'd pass over the microphone for a starter, so Ahmed. And just to try and introduce Ahmed so he can tell his story about why he went on the flotilla and his experiences there. So I guess the first thing to start with is, what made you want to go on the flotilla in the first instance?
Good evening. As Sylvia really told us in the amazing way that she did, the conditions that we've seen in Gaza, in Palestine, and in all the occupied territories around the world is absolutely horrendous. But for me, what really made me to feel I have to do something is the Operation Cast Lead. Before that, I didn't know too much. I've been following what's happened and I've read the history, but when I've seen what happened in Operation Cast Lead, when I've seen how kids were taken away from their parents, how women were humiliated, how just the murder that happened on all those civilians, and especially more than anything the humiliation. The economic condition of Gaza is really bad, and the sewage and all of that is horrible. But when you see a kid being taken away from his mother, and that's the most grievous thing for a parent, is to lose a child, and you can see them in their eyes, and when you see them in the checkpoints, how they get hit around and how they get pushed like that and shouted at and made to stand there, not allowed to do anything with their life, and just that subjugation and that humiliation for what? For absolutely nothing at all. That really affected me a lot when I see that, and I really felt that I couldn't do anything about it. I mean, if all of us here in this room, or even in this suburb or here in Sydney, if we were affected by something like what Palestinians go through, or even what the Iraqis and the Afghanis and all others, including the Aboriginals, wouldn't you wish or wouldn't you hope that there was someone somewhere around the world who's going to come and who's going to relieve your situation? Or is everyone just going to ignore it and leave you to suffer and be humiliated like that? So when I saw that, I felt, what's the difference between me and what's the difference between them? What's the difference between my mother and their mothers, their sisters, and my sister, my neighbours and their neighbours? There is no difference. And the racism has come across today in the biggest form, which everyone seems to, it passes people's attention. And that is when you see and you concentrate on the life of one person or a few people, or even soldiers, but you ignore the death of millions and you pass the death on the news. This is the real meaning of racism. When a million people die in Iraq, and they're women and they're kids, and they have lives, and they have, many of them become orphans, and that's ignored or that's overlooked. But the grief of someone, a local or someone who we can identify with, just one person, raises the news. Even a dog in a tree gets the news, but people in Iraq don't get it. So though people in Palestine don't get it. So when I felt this, I felt really hopeless, and I really wanted to do something, and I couldn't go around talking about it anymore either. I've spoken to people, but each time I speak about it, it depresses me, it affects me. I don't like even hearing about the humiliation that they suffer, because I can't handle it. So when all of that, and my sister, she was in Kuwait at the time, and she was part of the organising of the flotilla. And when I heard about it, and I knew some of the people in Turkey who were part of the organising as well, and some of those from England, I felt this might be a chance for me to do something. And more than anything, even before we left, I just wanted to go over there to the people of Gaza and show them, like, even if I couldn't help them, just show them there's people overseas, there's people outside, don't have some hope, have some. We're coming here for your respect, for your honour. People can live, like, even though the situations are horrible, people can live without electricity or without like the best food or available education systems. But when they're humiliated to the point where their fathers are killed and their brothers are killed, their kids are snatched away from them, people are in prison, they can't visit their families. This is the most serious thing that's happening, and it can't be. It's the most humane thing, and it can't be overlooked. Even if their systems are eradicated, how can the rest of the world watch while people are affected that way? So that's really what I'm interested in.
So I guess my next question would be, how did you prepare for going aboard the flotilla in terms of, well, both the political preparations, because obviously there have been a few attempts to get into Gaza before, that, and I think there's been a whole series of instances. Perhaps one of the most famous ones is the death of Rachel Corrie, who was an activist from America. So obviously the IDF and Israel don't take too kindly to outsiders showing solidarity with the Palestinians. So what kind of things did you do to prepare, and did you find that there was much political support from people in Australia and from Turkey and the other countries where the delegates on board the ship came from?
Actually, to be honest, what I knew was there were some people I knew from England who were going on the flotilla, and they told me that they'd been very public about it, and they tried to raise money to go, and they were detained at the airports, and they were stopped from going. So I took that for myself, said I'll be really quiet about this one and try that, especially because Australia is not even as far ahead as the United Kingdom is. So I was actually quiet, and I was around the people near me, and I didn't really tell many people at all, not even my university, or I didn't try to raise any awareness or media or any of that. I just booked my flight and went to Turkey. We all knew what happened with Rachel Corrie and how Israel treats anyone under its control, or anyone it can abuse. And like me personally, for me, I didn't really have to read myself too much about it, because from the beginning, when I saw what happened to the Palestinians, I made up my mind that it doesn't matter what happens now. What they're going through, that's the worst of it. And I'm one person, and I'm a young man. There are women there, and there are kids there, and there's young girls there. I should be able to handle anything that they go through, and it shouldn't even be an issue. So that was the psychological preparation, or whatever. When we got to Turkey, though, we saw a really amazing sight that I've never witnessed before, and that was like just thousands and thousands and thousands of people there on the streets. More than the politicians, they were quite quiet about it because of obviously political reasons or their strategy, or even though they did support it like very subtly. But the people came to the streets, and that's where I realised the power of people, and there's some hope here. There's a lot of stories I can tell you, and one of them that really affected me and my wife and my sister, we all went to Turkey, was during one of the rallies, just before we were about to get onto the ship, and all the people were there, and they were all chanting, and people brought sweets, and kids brought sweets from their houses, and cakes, and the kids were giving us sweets, saying, take this to the people of Gaza, and you give it to them. And just as we were about to get onto the boat, there was a girl, and she had jewelry on, and she didn't have anything else to give, but from the mood she just really wanted to give it to us. And she tried to take the jewelry off, but she couldn't get her earring off like in time, and she just pulled it off to give it to us in such a rush. Like that was really the morale that was going on amongst Turkish people there. I was there in Turkey for about a month because the date kept getting delayed because of all types of sabotages and the rest of it. But I met a lot of people from Europe, a lot of people from Britain, and a lot from Spain, some from South America. It was really a very international delegation that was there. Some of them free journalists, a lot of people from the socialist movement. There was a lot of people who've been campaigners for justice around in the world, and I think that's a really important point that I recognized. That is, this struggle for the Palestinian people is not a struggle on its own. It's the same struggle against those who abuse the environment and violate, and who abuse the economy, and civilians all over the world who control parties. It's the exact same opposition. So whichever front you fight on, you're still fighting the same group, and you're bringing down the same mentality or the same criminality. They are responsible for all the environmental disasters that they've caused in the last few days, all the economic disparities in the world, the wars everywhere. And it was very clear for me, and it was very simple, and especially when I could see all the other delegations there who were all their lives being active and doing so much for many different causes. I hadn't done much. I'm only a uni student, but I just had a bit of interest there, and probably was there the right, out of chance and the right connections. But really seeing all that, the morale was extremely high, and especially the look from the Turkish people, how they're all aspiring and they have so much hope. Said, you go there, we'll give you everything we have. So many people, they took out loans to give, and they're not very wealthy people, and you'll find that it's the poorer people who give more than the wealthy ones. And all of that really touched us. That really was amazing. It was amazing.
And so, what about when you got on the ship, though, in terms of your comrades at arms? I guess that then having not being comrades at arms. Was there much preparation there? Did you have much of a sense of what Israel was going to do? Or, because you said there'd been sabotage and things like that in terms of, obviously, attempts to try and stop the ship from sailing.
I think from the organisation's top to the bottom, the main, when we'd all sit down and discuss it, what do you think the outcomes might be, the biggest thing anyone, including the organisation, ever expected was probably that the ships would be surrounded for a while, and we've got enough canned food for about a month in the ship for us to survive on, and all of us went there ready for that. We'll probably be surrounded for about a month, and the media and pressure and all of that will eventually get us there. But we did not think that for 1 second that there was going to be brutal attacks like that in international waters under the sight of the whole world, and all the governments who claim to be heroes of humanitarian rights and freedoms. And, I guess that was the biggest mistake we had. We had a bit of hope in our heart. But nothing else, and no one really expected it, not top to down. But while we were on the ship at the beginning, it was like that, the similar mood. Morale was really high. We were going around getting to know everyone. And there was, like I say, so many people from Europe, and so many people. There was a good number from Turkey, because this was the Turkish ship. But whichever countries didn't have a ship, didn't have enough people for a ship, they joined the Turkish ship as well, as the case with Australia when I went. So we would just all spend time trying to communicate with each other. Not all of us could speak the same languages, but it seemed really well, and it was one of the best 3 days in my life that I've ever experienced up till that event.